I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Chris Buckman.
Here.
Carol Hadorn. Larry Mangum.
Here.
Jason Newberry.
Here.
Deanna Garber.
Here.
Tom Henny.
Here.
Pat Vika.
Here. We need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
We moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed?
Do we need a roll call vote since Jason's not here?
I don't know. We haven't had.
Verbal, I think we did a verbal
yeah.
last time, yeah.
Okay. Jason's here by phone, so we will have a roll call vote.
Okay.
Chris Buckman.
Yes.
Carol Hadorn. Larry Mangum.
Yes.
Jason Newberry.
Yes.
Deanna Garber.
Yes.
Tom Henny.
Yes.
Pat Vika.
Yes. Okay, do we have any patrons?
Yes, so,
Okay.
Zach Hood, our new high school principal's here this evening, so wanted to get the face to the name there for you guys. Came to see you guys, and then Jason Holling, our new middle school principal, is also here tonight, so.
Nice to meet
Just
you.
wanted them to pop by and meet you guys real quick, so we're excited for everything they're gonna do in our schools this year. And obviously, we're rolling into a school year that should be a pretty interesting start. So, so that they've got their work cut out for them along with us, but we're really excited to have them and all that they're going to be able to do with their schools. So, just wanted to get you guys get them in front of you.
Thank you for being here. That's nice.
Were you a football or basketball guy at KU?
I was a football guy.
You were a football guy.
I wrestled in high school, so.
You wrestled in high school, football guy at KU. You were the long snapper, is that what I said?
Yep.
There you go. Too bad I'm a K-State guy.
I won't hold that against you, but you're wearing blue, so I appreciate that.
There you go.
There you go.
Good deal.
Okay. I like you so. Mr. Farley is going to talk about the mental health initiative.
And I have some people that will be joining me via Zoom, so we'll try and coordinate the PowerPoint as much as we can with their presentations. But before we get started, just wanted to introduce those people that have been pretty big in this process. And the process I'm talking about is the Sumner Mental Health Initiative. And what we're doing the last 2 years is really just trying to strengthen our bond with Sumner Mental Health. If students need mental health services, whatever it is, we really try to find ways to get those into the schools and help them. Right now, just some quick numbers. In the district, and this was as of, I believe, January, we had 134 students in the district receiving mental health services of some kind. And of those, 69 of them were receiving services inside the schools. And part of that with them receiving services inside the schools is if they have trouble getting to their mental health appointments, different things like that, it's easier for a therapist to just come to the school and see them there. We have a room, quiet, they can get their services however many minutes it is. And that's just a nice way to make sure that they're getting what they need, help the families out too. But the people you're going to be hearing from, first is Amy Wells. She works with TASN. TASN's a group provided by the state. They are leading the the Mental Health Initiative. It's a state initiative, but also with Trauma Informed, it's a national movement as well. And so in our third year, we're working towards that, but Amy's been really, the main person that's really worked with us from TASN. She comes to the district once a month, really puts in a lot of time with us and has set up our team and actually has us to a point where we're working on making this sustainable. The second person that I'll introduce to you is Cherie Blanchett, and she is, I wrote down their actual titles. Cherie is the project coordinator of this whole thing. So her job is just to make sure it started off with, I believe, 6 or 7 districts within the state. And what they're wanting to do, they've been strategically placed throughout the state. So as one district gets the hang of this, they can be a help to the other districts picking this up. And then through the partnership, we've gotten very close with Summer Mental Health. Again, we have therapists in all of our buildings, and a person who's really been important in that process is Dr. Rick Gaskell. He is the executive director of Summer Mental Health, and he's also a fellow of the Child Trauma Academy. Dr. Bruce Perry is a nationally, probably world-known scientist in this area, a psychologist. He really focuses on trauma. Dr. Gaskell works with him on a individual basis, so we're really lucky to have someone with his expertise involved with us. And so as soon as we get signed in, I'll let them start talking a little bit. So
Can I ask a question?
yeah, whatever question
I
you have.
know, at one point when we first started getting counselors and things and they came to school, we got to charge, and I'm not, I'm saying kind of, we got some money back or whatever kind of the deal.
With
Is this a charge? We're not charged when they come to
no.
see a student at school or anything, and we don't get any kind of.
In fact, the last 2 years, and I'm not exactly sure on what we got, but we actually received the money for doing this. With that money, it went to different things like training, maybe bringing in some professionals to speak to the staff just to get them, coached up on what we were wanting to do. But as far as spending money, we have not had to do that.
I think that's what I was talking about back when they first kind of started this, when I was at Kennedy still, when we first started getting counselors.
Yeah.
We got money for what you're talking about.
And
Sounds like it.
And as far as like with Summer Mental Health, when their therapist comes into the school, they bill for that.
That's probably what you're trying to
Yeah, but that doesn't affect us.
Yeah.
And really, with our services that we provide students, we bill for those as well. So, but yeah, those stay separate of each other. We started this initiative 2 years ago. It started small and focus was in Eisenhower Elementary School. Last year when I took over, we started to focus on, we saw how good it was for the students at Eisenhower. And really what Tazen wanted to do is spread it across the district. So we started to work on that. So again, we have just about every building has someone trained on the products that we've created as a team, and I'll go through those in the presentation. They are going to be with us one more year. This year's going to be less intensive. Like I said, we're at a point as a district where we can sustain this on our own and go through those growing pains of learning, okay, we need another person here, we need to get some training here. But in this third year, that's what we're going to work on. And again, any area schools that decide to implement this will be used as resources as well.
So, we're streaming this meeting, is that right? Through you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are streaming.
Yeah, I just didn't see, we've been, last time we had something out here. And,
We're trying something new tonight. We're gonna keep messing with it until we get it good.
okay.
But we do plan to stream each meeting from there on.
Okay.
So how does a person see it?
So Shelby puts the link on our main page and then also on Facebook.
It's on our website.
They'll talk about our website, and then they just click on the link and see, we're doing YouTube. And it should just take you right here.
Yes, it's YouTube.
So you don't have to have a Facebook account. You should just go click on the YouTube link.
Okay, well, for time's sake, I'll just go ahead and jump in and do it. If we're able to get them, great. I also do want to extend an invite to you. So I'm gonna go through this in about 15 minutes or give or take, but there's way too much to cover in that 15. So if any of you ever would like to Zoom with the individuals from Tazen or anything like that, they have already said they'd be more than happy to do so. maybe we
Yeah, mute your laptops.
I think it's muted.
Okay, good.
On yours.
Okay, I thought so, because I was looking.
Sorry,
No, I was talking about mine.
Yeah.
You can just hit the mute button on your keyboard too.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
because I was looking, I was like, wait a minute.
Amy?
Yeah.
This one's muted.
I was muted.
Okay.
It's Tom's.
It's not mine.
He's a commuter guy.
He's a commuter. Are you a commuter?
He's a computer.
I should get a That's my social life, so.
I'm just gonna put you on the phone. You ready? Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, so hopefully you can hear. This is Amy Wells. She's with Tazen. So Amy, they can hear you now.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you've kind of told us a little bit about that first slide. We're excited to provide an update to you all about what has been happening in your district with Central Mental Health and the collaboration. If you want to go to the next slide, Daniel.
Okay, with the arrows?
There. Or Jen, maybe.
I've got it.
Okay. So before we get started, I want to provide you a little information about who we are and what we do. So the Technical Assistance System Network, also called TASN, you might hear that a little more often. And it looks like actually, Daniel, that we might be getting on. I might be able to hop on with the other link. I will go ahead and keep talking. Maybe if you can let Cherie and Rick on. I will just ignore this notification and hop off via Zoom. Is that okay? And I'll just stay on the phone.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the Technical Assistance System Network provides technical assistance on behalf of the Kansas State Department of Education, and there are several providers that you may have heard of within TASN in addition to the School Mental Health Initiative. You might have heard of ATBS, the Autism and Tertiary Behavior Supports, or the Kansas Multi-Tiered System of Supports, or the Kansas Parent Information Resource Center. So those are just several projects that are within that same group, and we just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of context for the work. Can you go to the next slide, please? So, I want to share the 4 objectives for the School Mental Health Professional Development Coaching System. So it's supported through the Kansas State Personnel Development Grant, which was awarded to KSDE, and it's just facilitated through TASN and our our school mental health initiatives. So it's a pretty prestigious grant to receive, and so we're really excited that we get to provide the support through that grant. And our goals are, first of all, cross-system school and community teams to implement a structured process for recognizing, assessing, identifying, and responding to students at risk or experiencing mental health difficulties and mental health emergencies. Another second objective is the cross-system teams. We support them in implementing evidence-based, multi-tiered, trauma-informed mental health interventions with fidelity. And that's a mouthful, but it's also kind of a moving target and a really difficult thing for schools to sometimes capture. So that's a really big objective, and we're really excited to say that this Wellington Sumner Mental Health team has actually fulfilled some pretty amazing parts of that objective already in the 2 years that we've worked together. And I know Daniel's going to share a little bit about that, but I got to get a little chance to brag about this team. The third objective is that we are working to utilize data-based decision-making, really so it's relevant to your community, so there's continuous improvement. And the fourth objective is that all Kansas districts and communities will have access to evidence-based resources, protocols, processes, and professional learning that are shown to be effective in meeting mental health needs of Kansas students. And one of the ways that happens is by working with really incredible teams. We really only select teams that are the best at what they do so that they can help us to build a bunch of replicable resources and try things out in their district and really just make it so that other communities can follow that model. So we're really excited that we get to work with this team, and I will pass the baton to Rick Gaskell.
I don't think he's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I might. Do you want me to get him? Maybe I know I'm getting a whole bunch of text messages. Maybe I can ask him to call you.
I'll call him next.
Okay.
So,
all right.
All right.
Well, I see that I am able to join the meeting, so I'm going to join that way and open my phone.
Okay.
A whole bunch of noise with the static that'll happen if I join with two things at once.
All right. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Uh-huh.
Hey, we were having trouble with the computer, so I'm going to just have you on the phone, okay?
Oh, okay, so I don't need to, you're trying to get on here.
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm not gonna stick, what working right for me. Okay.
Okay, well, you were on speakerphone, so I'll let you start talking. I've already introduced you.
Okay, so, has Sheree already said anything, or where
No.
are we at?
We can't get Cherie, so we're just going to jump to you.
Oh, okay, well, let me jump forward. And what I'm going to talk about in our program is starting with the number of kids that we typically find who have lots of ACE scores, and I'm assuming, Daniel, that probably most of the people have heard of the ACE project, so we don't really need to talk about that. Would that be correct?
Well, go ahead and share what ACEs is. And I've got it on the slide with the numbers.
Oh, okay. Well, the ACE research project, which is actually dates back to the late 1990s and the early 2000s, was a major research project by Kaiser Permanente and the Center for Disease Control. And essentially what they found was that adverse childhood events are highly predictive of increased risk for just about any medical or healthcare problem or learning problem, education problem that you can imagine. Now, the reason for that becomes very, very complicated in terms of the length of the stressor, the type of the stressor, how old you were, and so forth. So we won't go into that, but suffice it to say that there was a very, very strong relationship found between the stressors occurring early in childhood and the resulting healthcare, social, psychiatric, mental, academic problems. And part of the reason for that is that we know unequivocally at this point that the low brain records all kinds of information early in life, and that as the child grows and develops, that information informs the developmental brain development for the child. And so a lot of these traumatic events and if you will, the problematic neural programming gets carried forward from childhood and can be a problem throughout life. So if you go to the next slide, it says that 20% of children in youth have clearly identified mental health needs. And so we find only about a third of these children actually ever receive help. And the reason for that historically has been the distance that children and parents would have to travel, the cost, time away from school, the availability of mental health care, and because of a lot of those factors, many children just never did not receive the kind of mental health care they needed. Over 70% of the children who do get care receive that in the schools through school social workers, school counselors, school psychologists, maybe even the janitor who was, in my childhood, who was always a very important figure in the grade school. Well, the problem with that is that these issues that the children develop are more than what can be met by the school and it's in and of itself, because the school does not work with the family. They do not do psychiatric medication management. They are not they're not included as providers of family therapy, alcohol and drug treatment. They don't provide community-based services like case management, attendant care, other kind of social services that might be helpful to the child. And they're not, because their primary mission is education, they are not staffed to provide the array of services, nor are they staffed to provide the absolute high number of services that are required to create sufficient change. We used to think that counseling once a week was adequate to create the kind of change that people need, and it's now abundantly clear in these severe cases where children have what they call early developmental trauma that it may take thousands of interventions over a period of years to make change in the lower parts of the brain, which unfortunately don't change quickly. The cortex is a very rapid learner, and that's why it's there. But the low brain, the brainstem, the diencephalon, and some of those low brain parts just do not change rapidly. They can change, but they don't change quickly. So treatment access then becomes an important objective if we're going to deal with a lot of these children who have, and I went to the next slide there, Daniel, on treatment access. If we're going to make changes for these kids, then one of the things we've got to do is make sure that we provide services in the time and in the manner in which the children need them. And one of the things we found is that when children receive mental health services for like post-traumatic stress disorder, which many of these children have, when they receive those services within the school setting, then we find that about 6 times the number of children will complete treatment than if we just leave it up to the parents to go find access and complete treatment other places. So the more accessible we can become to the families, the more they are often willing and able to participate in clinic-based treatment within or based out of the school. And that can become part of the child's regular attendance. Just a sidebar, when Sumner Mental Health Center first began its school-based initiative, which now would be probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer than that actually, one of the things that we found was we started over in Belle Plaine, and we found many parents in Belle Plaine who did not know there was a community mental health center in the county. So even being 15 miles away is often a problem for many of the families, especially those that are somewhat disconnected from services. If we go to the next slide on the formula for success and implementation, obviously to be effective, we're going to have to be trauma-informed and what is often called developmentally sensitive, or in other words, we need to understand how this juvenile brain is growing and developing and how this particular one works, and that we can be brain-based and not only brain-based generally, but services based on how this particular child is functioning. So it takes quite a bit of assessment, and it takes a group of people providing a variety of services to meet those needs. So effective implementation then becomes our next step, and we've got to meet the child where they're at. And the simplest way I could put this is no different than probably every teacher knows, is that I can't start teaching a subject or a concept if the child doesn't have the foundational knowledge to get it. So I wouldn't or shouldn't be teaching introductory algebra when the child is still trying to learn how to add and subtract. Well, the same thing is true in terms of fundamental psychological, emotional, developmental kinds of skills, that we've got to start where the child is at, and we have to prop them up, provide support, strengthen those skills, and then we can begin moving forward. This is really not greatly different than schools have done for academic deficits for a very long time, and that is providing remedial care, extra help, that sort of thing to try to help children improve their academic standing. Well, we're talking about doing the same sort of things and supplying that developmental, emotional, and social development that the children need. And so finally then, the slide says enabling the context. Well, in other words, we've got to treat the child in the child's world and in the child's system. That generally means it has to be a holistic approach to work with the child without trying to work with the family or the community or all the places that become involved and impactful in the child's life is likely to lead to less success than if we can get all of those entities all pulling together for the same kinds of purposes. And when we do that, then we're much more likely to have significant outcomes that are very helpful to the child. And there's a growing amount of evidence that that is actually the case. So if we look at the next slide, which has two triangles, one inverted and the other one the way we ordinarily look at a triangle, essentially the community partners are going to have their greatest involvement with children who have the highest level of problems. Now, the nice thing about this is, and this uses the MTSS pyramid, and you've got your highest need children at the top in the green in tier 3. That smaller group of kids who need that intensive work are the ones that the community mental health center and other social and community partners would then be focusing on. And the larger number of children at the bottom who can benefit from just the basic normal universal services and supports that all children need, that is going to require less help from the community partners. So what we find is that the larger the impact that is required, the greater the likelihood that we need to draw together social partners in that process. So then going to the next slide, white cross system alignment to improve outcomes. In the first box, probably the one that impacts me the most is a shared vision to support the mental health needs of the child. And I think this is just human nature that we have a tendency to become very siloed and do things the way we've always done them, and we make sense to ourselves and so forth. That is a system that this program really tries to break down, where we have a shared vision between the community mental health center, between the schools, the teachers, the counselors, so that we're all working and looking at the problem in the same way to provide the needs that the child genuinely needs. So trying to gain a consensus, a lot of teamwork here in trying to align those practices and the resources that are going to be needed to brought to bear. And some of those are in school, and some of them are out of school, getting children connected with healthy activities. Just a simple example of that, I've always told our case managers when they've asked me, what is it that case managers actually do? And I said, you should be doing all of the things with that child that are healthy that every child should be doing. And you should do those often. And you should encourage parents to get involved in that, because if we have a child who is getting what they need from school, from the mental health center, from their parents, that child is most likely going to get the number of positive repetitions of learning social skills, psychological, emotional concepts, academic concepts, and they're most likely to make progress. So there has to be a continuum of supports specific to the child's needs. And I circled this one as one I really wanted to talk about, because one of the things I think we have a tendency to do, and I say we because I think this is human nature, that we often try to boil down what we do to something where we don't have to think, that it becomes routine, and we begin supplying the same thing to every child in that situation, rather than supplying the things that the child actually needs. So being very specific about our interventions with a particular child is critically important. And an example of that I heard the other day that was, I think, an excellent example is, if I just say to you that the child needs a friendly face, and you say, well, then I'll smile at the child more often, that is not necessarily going to be helpful, because the smile has to be genuine. And you can smile at a child and never become involved with them. And if the child needs a genuine, warm, caring human relationship, then we've got to make sure that we are forming that kind of relationship with the child. So, excuse me. So, moving over to the next group there, increased effectiveness, implementation of evidence-based and research-based practices. This program that Wellington School System and Center Mental Health Center have engaged in is based on some of the most advanced neurobiological concepts that have come out in the last 20 years. And these concepts are, quite honestly, revolutionizing mental health treatment. They're going to revolutionize academic education of children and parenting, because we are learning things that we never knew before. A very simple example of that is that we have thought for years and years and years that the cortex was the most important organ or section in the brain, but it turns out that the lower parts of the brain are perfectly capable under great stress and strain to turn the cortex off, and so we will behave in very, very primitive ways. So learning things like that, and learning how you cope with children who go into that fight or flight or freeze syndrome is very important for how we go about managing kids in school, and anywhere for that matter. And then finally, refining and sustainability. One of the things that we've got to do is we have to build a system-wide infrastructure that is built on effective practices, like those best practices that are evolving as we discover more. We have to be self-correcting. You know, and I remember as a child being told by my father that if something doesn't work and you keep doing it, you're probably going to keep getting the same result. And so one of the things we have to do is have a built-in process by which we are continually reevaluating whether the things we're doing are working or not, and why they're not working, which is not exactly a new concept, but it's one that I think we're probably well advised to keep in mind. And then finally, collaboration and shared with participating members of the school mental health team. One of the things that has been, I think, most impactful to me in this program that we're now getting ready to start our third year of this is how much better communication has become when we took the time to get the people from the school and the mental health center together to work on problems together and to understand each other's problems in delivering some of those services. And we have streamlined our referral process. We have staff in the schools who are increasingly participating in the meetings with the teachers and the counselors and the social workers and administrators, so that we all are moving and functioning with one vision. And I mentioned the referral protocol that we have. We've done a remarkable job of identifying who our partners are, what the procedures for managing referrals. We've worked a bunch of blocks out doing that. And we are, I think, beginning to move in an excellent direction of effective, developing effective protocols for specific children as they matriculate through this process. Daniel, that's kind of what I had written down. If there's anything that I need to say or you need to comment on, now would be the time.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Hey, I'll have you stay on in case they have any questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So what Rick was talking about, the referral protocol. So this was the first artifact that we came up with. And I remember when I taught, if I ever, as far as the accessibility of any place I was, as far as getting students mental health services, or if I thought maybe, or if a parent asked me, how do we get that? I really didn't have a way to do it. And this team, again, made up of different members from Summer Mental Health, USD353. We came together and made this protocol, and really you start, begin here, and it's simple, yes or no. You just read in the boxes, share concerns with family, caregiver. And again, let me reiterate, that isn't saying, that's not coming out and saying your child needs mental health services. It's a conversation. This is what we're seeing in the classroom. And when I talked about training earlier, that's where getting our staff training on how to have those conversations, how to share with the parents. Because in a lot of those instances, the parents are seeing much of the same thing at home. You move on, and right here, is there an immediate concern for potential harm to self or others? Yes or no, and you just work your way through, and that helps guide the staff, administration, as far as how do we get the student services, how do we get in contact with summer mental health. Starting year 3, and this, again, a lot of this, we put it in place at Eisenhower. It's spread to, we really focused on the elementary schools more, went into the middle school a little bit, got into the high school a little bit last year. And so hopefully that picks up more this year. But again, it just made our staff have an easier time as far as, and parents, figuring out how to get those resources for their kids.
Daniel, one thing that I would kind of highlight your description that I think to me has been one of the most remarkable accomplishments for us, and that is I think we've gotten our staff to the point where they have no problem saying, well, I'm going to pick up the phone and call Stephanie, or Stephanie will be here this afternoon and I'll have an answer for you, or calling our office and knowing who to ask for, and knowing that somebody in that process that they can get a hold of will remove barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that going both ways, both in the school and at the mental health center, just getting people comfortable with each other and knowing that we're all trying to get to the same end has been enormously helpful.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And along those lines too, in year 3, each building has its own therapist. Each therapist is going to schedule themselves to be there on the days that the building has its general ed intervention meetings, where they talk about what are they seeing from students, different things like that. And they're going to make themselves available in those meetings. So if staff are seeing things, and it is a student who is receiving services, those therapists can be there to help out. And again, along the lines of communication, privacy, all of those forms are taken care of. If a parent doesn't want that to be discussed, that isn't something we force on them at all. Again, it's just another option, another resource for them. Moving through here, and again, this was the implementation phase. So we had, do you have something, Rick?
No.
Okay. So we had the exploration phase, installation, initial implementation, full implementation, and then we are at sustainability. That process, honestly, it took a while to roll out the referral protocol because we had to work the kinks out and make sure it was something that we could use. Then once we actually put it into place, took it back, saw what, got feedback from staff, what's working, what's not, and, made those changes to make it even more efficient.
Yeah. Daniel, I might also throw in there, and I don't know if you mentioned this to everyone there at the meeting, but TASM is doing the same thing in multiple sites around the state. Besides us, we were the first, but it's been interesting that a lot of the materials that we've developed, many of the other school and mental health dyads have adopted, modified some, but it looks like there is a very common set of problems or answers or processes that work for most of us, and we are probably going to have several sister systems that want to meet with us periodically. We had an early meeting with Manhattan School System here, I don't know, a month or so ago. But this is beginning to be a statewide initiative, and it is. I think it is being enthusiastically embraced, as far as I know, in every place that TASM has offered to implement this program.
And along those lines too, we're one of the few places in the state that's doing it district-wide. So,
That's true.
and hopefully we'll continue to spread to different entities in the community and county. This section here is probably my favorite, just because it's helped us so much in special education and regular ed. As far as I mentioned, the general ed intervention meetings. This is the student support plan in a progress monitoring form. This is just the data here that I'll let you read through as I talk, but basically what this is we have had, behavior has always been something that teachers have had to learn to deal with. But some of the behaviors we're seeing, such as kids leaving the building, coming in as soon as they get in the door, maybe don't get in the door, go into crisis mode before they even get into class. These are things that we hear from our staff that they've never seen, they don't know how to deal with. And so we are trying to move as fast as we can to get our staff the resources they need. And this has been a very good tool for us. We started it last year. And what it is a functional behavior assessment that, instead of looking at the individual student and leaving us with tons of data that we'll eventually have to go through, essentially what it is we put in a plan with the parent, with Sumner Mental Health if they have a provider. We basically get together and we look at all facets of the student's life, outside of school, inside of school, community, home, and we collaborate with all of those stakeholders. And from there, we put together a plan. And that plan we put together is what we get data on. And so that way, instead of taking that time to individually just focus, have data, now we got to meet to go through the data, we have data on a plan. As we see things need to be changed, tweaked, whatever, we do that. And then we take data on those pieces that we added and just try to find the best support plan for staff and students. We did do, and I have up here 11 across the district. Those were 11 official where we had parents and Sumner Mental Health involved. We had some, and again, this is something that we have in our IEP as well. So whenever our IEP managers want to do a functional behavior assessment, they use this. But of the 11 students that we had, 80% were in special education. And again, this was a tool that our special ed teachers really used. They wanted a basic form for an FBA, and this is just a really good tool for them. Of the 11, again, these were 100% across the board. We had reg ed teachers, parents, Sumner Mental Health. Sometimes we had other people that the parents or the families may want in there. And so, again, they could be pretty big meetings. And then the 80% there, we got parental input and supports. I'm going to go down here. I want to explain improvement. It says 78% of students showed improvement. 2 of those we weren't able to finish up just because of school closure. But with improvement, basically what we tried to do, and again, the behaviors we might be seeing are pretty escalated. And so improvement in this case is keeping the student in school. They're not suspended. They're not disrupting their day. They're not disrupting others' days. They're staying in the class if that's something they're struggling with. We target one behavior, work on that, and then we basically address the highest need and then move on to the next need as we start to have some success for that student. So again, that improvement isn't the mindset of it's 100% fixed. It's we've got improvement, we've got them staying in class, we have them staying in school, they're able to go through their day with very few disruptions. That's improvement to us early on. Rick, anything?
Well, the only thing I would add to that is education typically progresses in a specific manner. And the first is, and this usually occurs before children get to preschool, and that is that the child begins to be able to regulate their own body in terms of, simply put, keeping their hands to themselves, being able to walk, run around, manipulate things. And in preschool, then we start working on the second phase of education, and that is being able to live your life in proximity to other people, social education. And then finally, by the time they get into grade school, we're into the final state of education, which is the academic education of the cortex. The issue that I think that is important is that each of these stages builds upon the other. And if you have a child that can't sit still, that is constantly feeling threat, even when maybe there's no real threat there, those children cannot learn effectively until those things are mastered. So starting out with what may sound like a fairly simplistic measure of success really is following the developmental trajectory of all children. And there are literally children who, if we had more time, I could go into this more, but there are literally children who cannot regulate their own bodies. And if they can't do that, they can't get to what school's mission is, and that is to educate the brain, educate the social skills, and prepare children for a successful life. You can't do that if they can't regulate their bodies and if they can't regulate themselves in relationship to other people. So that may seem like a small thing, but it really gives you a bird's eye view of how incredibly handicapped some of these children are. And that's where we have to start so that we can move forward and maybe eventually teach them algebra, but we've got to get them to stay calm, and we've got to have them get along with other people first. That makes sense, Daniel?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. And then, so we started this year with 9 people that knew how to actually lead support plan meetings. I will tell you that I was at just about every one of them, just trying to make sure, we use the tool correctly, we're tracking it, looking for data. And along those lines here, this year, as far as sustainability, 2 areas that we're going to work with staff on to just continue this. One is data collection, what data to collect, how do you collect it? And then the other piece is getting this tool, that training widespread across the district. And I believe, last week, before all this, blew up, we were going to have a training in September. I don't know when that will be, but we are going to have that and try and get as many people in the district that training as possible, so that we can at least maybe have 1 to 2 people at each building that know how to use this. This is our third part that we're going to be working on this year as well, and that's, again, our district focus is trauma-responsive school communities. And so we do have training modules that go along with trauma-informed. TASM's been working on them for quite a while, wanting to get them just right. They've got those, and so I'm actually meeting with them later this month, and then we'll get those out to our administrators so they can start training our staff on that. And then the other piece to this too is that transition and reintegration. We have sometimes students, based on their needs, may have to go to alternative settings for school, whether it be a residential facility, day school, whatever they need. And so when that happens before this, those students would go to those facilities. They would be very successful. They would have, they would make major gains. And then the old system is we'll release them, send them back to the same environment they were struggling in. And it was no wonder they began to struggle. And so within this is, really tried to change that mindset of when a student goes to this. And again, these are tier 3 interventions, so they don't happen often. When they do, that meeting occurs with family. We make sure we have systems in place so that when they do come back, we can accept them back into the school and make sure their supports are there that they need. Last piece on this, and that is the last slide I have. Again, anytime Rick is very knowledgeable on this, fun to listen to. He can go a lot further into this. So if you would like to schedule a time to speak with him, let me know, and we would love to make that happen. But I don't have anything else to present unless any of you have questions for me. You have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you run into, or what do you do when you run into parents who are not, don't want to participate or don't want to, or don't share the same ideas that you do about their child, or you can't even contact the parent possibly?
So two different things there. So if we can't contact them, I mean, we'll, you know, again, before all of this, we would go out to we might go to the house, send a letter. A lot of times though, we knew when they came to pick them up, we might go stop out before school, just find a way to get in contact with them. And there are parents that don't want this. And when they don't want it,
You just can't do it.
yeah, we don't push. That's the last thing we want. You know, we don't want to ruin that relationship that we already have with them. And it's like with anything, we just look for other resources to help them out. Yeah.
Thank you.
When you talk about regulating them, are you using the zones of regulation or are you doing something different?
We can. Deanna, not everybody is trained on zones. For those that are, that's a popular
I didn't know if that
tool.
was the training you were talking about.
No. On this, really for this, that's a very good question. The training on this, so we have our staff, one thing we do is CPI training.
Okay.
And again, everyone thinks that it jumped to the hands-on, the restraints, but 95% of that is meeting the student on their level, relationships. With trauma-informed as well, and what we're wanting to train the staff on, that is changing your perspective. So when we talk about trying to regulate the student, it's taking into account what are they coming into school with?
Okay.
What do we not see? And rather than what's wrong with this student, it's how can we help this student? What trigger is existing that is causing this?
Daniel,
Yeah.
I might add to that. Let me preface my comment by saying that I have not had a lot of experience with the zones of regulation, but so I don't want to misspeak on that. But one of the very, very common problems that we run into is that honestly about 90% of all of our interventions for mental health and so forth are cortex based, meaning that they're about understanding and about willfully thinking and so forth. The problem we're finding with those is it's not that those aren't valuable, they are. And in a well-regulated child, they work quite well. The problem is that most of the dysregulation that we're talking about is below the level of consciousness, and it doesn't respond to language, it doesn't respond to logic, it doesn't respond to insight. It is literally the primitive part of the brain that functions with a newborn baby. And probably most of you, if you have children that are like me, that I learned pretty quickly that my infant child didn't really care what I had to say. And so what Daniel's getting at is a lot of this is understanding which part of the brain is disorganized and helping people understand that we've got to start where that child is at. And it may be that trying to talk or teach them some skill is actually the very worst thing we could do first. That the first thing we've got to do is maybe help the child go out on the swing set for a while, or whatever kind of regulatory behavior that we can do, and then start building forward there. And I don't know, the zones of regulation might well address that. And if they do, that may be something that we can include with our teachers. But this is a very, very biologically based process in terms of analyzing where the dysfunction is coming from.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
I think we're ready for Wendy to share her Wendy information.
So I guess I don't have like a lot to share. I guess I communicated with you guys a little bit already. So I just kind of wanted to have a semi-open forum, see if you had any questions or concerns or thoughts. Next week we will be building the budget. Right now we are ending. Our budget's looking really healthy to start the new year, which is always good. That's what we want. We want stability. And so I just kind of wanted to gain insight from you guys going forward into next week on what you're feeling for
Since we didn't get the Kansas
KR
reading
reading roadmap.
roadmap, where's
Yep.
that money gonna come from?
So,
Actually, how much was the grant for?
sure, the
Should
grant
be the first
was
question.
$195,000.
So we didn't get anything at all?
Correct, zero.
Okay.
We have continued to have the Latchkey program alongside that, that we have through general fund or our LOB fund supplemented to continue to have after-school programs. Adam and I will be looking at budget-wise to continue to do that in the future. This coming budget year, I don't see us needing $195,000 to run an after-school program.
What are you thinking?
For all 4 schools, and depending on how schools, so that's gonna be probably,
It's going to depend on how we set it up. We can go as little as having nothing. Some school districts have nothing. We can also have a latchkey program that parents pay for to send their student for, and so therefore it pays for itself. Or the district can do something that they decide to put on that would cost money. So since we just found that news, we have not officially made those decisions, and those are things that we need to bring to you as well anyway. So it comes down to nothing to what we're going to do. So and that obviously depends on the budget. So those decisions need to be made, but it is not something that has to be an expense, or it could be an expense if the district chooses to do so, depending on what we want to do with our kids after school.
Right now, they don't pay for latchkey, do they?
there's a small amount,
There's not.
it's very small.
It doesn't pay for everything. Yeah, but that's not necessarily what we have to do going forward. We could have parents pay for the entire thing if we wanted to, and then it would be up to the parents whether they want to sign up.
And there are a lot of schools that do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be, it can be where.
It's pretty cheap when you consider it's.
Then we would just provide staff, and whatever the parents pay would cover the cost of the staff.
The positive is we have all the curriculum, all of the supplies, everything that we have used in the past years for KRR, we can continue to use going forward.
Yep.
So that helps.
We called around to other districts this week, just out of curiosity after we didn't get the grant, and there were a couple others that were in our same boat.
Yeah.
There are some that don't do anything after school. There are some that just provide kind of a daycare, like we just said, and then there's other ones that lost the grant that are trying to decide what they want to do, or at the same boat we are. So when this has happened in the past, we've kind of gone to more of a pay.
Yeah, to give you a little history too, we did have an after-school program prior to KRR, and I want to say it probably ran at about an $80,000 budget. And we did have some supplementing from the state, but we also charged student fees, and that's kind of what the expenses we're looking at. And that's across the whole district, middle school and all elementaries.
I would say this year, we would, with the current situation we're in, and obviously the state said that, we're in good shape for now, but, we'll see how the year goes. I think it's important for us to probably be pretty cautious and not throw a bunch of money into something that would be out of the general fund that would be for that. So,
Okay, that was a good question.
yeah, thanks, Chris.
What about the federal stimulus grant?
Yes, so we do have the federal stimulus. We have not spent any money out of it yet. I think we were kind of waiting to see where the funds were going to be needed. I want to say we are getting, let me tell you the exact amount. I want to say it's $284,000.
That's what I remember.
No, there's a good chance we're going to need some of that money going towards.
What can we use it on and what can't we use it on? Or is it just pretty much what we see
It's pretty
fit?
much open-ended. Operational, obviously, they would prefer you to use it on expenses generated from coronavirus. So extra cleaning supplies, custodial services.
How's the audit gonna be on that? They audit you for your.
They will. We get our audit on all our.
Right,
federal
right,
funds,
but I mean, if we don't use it, say we use something else besides cleaning supplies, I guess
You
my
can
question
use it
would
on
be,
staffing if
is
you
there a
need.
list of the do's and the don'ts?
There is, I
There
want
are
to say
guidelines?
yes, I want to say that may have been sent out to the board
It was.
a couple months ago, but I can
We can
resend that.
resend it, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that way you have it.
Well, I remember the list, what I'm talking about is, there was like one in there that said that that's up to the superintendent's discretion and somewhat like that. So I didn't know how tight we'd have to be
Yeah.
on using the money where we
If
wouldn't get dinged or anything.
I would want to, and we'll send that back out to you, and I'd want to reread it before I
Yeah.
spoke strongly on it. But how I remember it is, it's very much earmarked from the government to focus on this time period, and how extra expenses for this time period. And then it also, in some of the language, gives a little bit of flexibility for operating costs and other things. So
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit in there, but it's more of an emphasis on this.
Yeah, that's all. I just didn't know how detailed the guidelines were. If it was the email that you sent, and it was a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And I remember some of it, but not all of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if they came back and said, okay, now that we actually have gone through this is what you can. This is kind of like the CARES Act. It's always changing every day.
Right.
So I didn't know if they were making changes to it.
No, it's pretty open in general right now. But I don't feel like we're gonna have any problems using that money.
Well, no, I didn't think we'd have a problem. I just don't want to
We do
use
have
it
until September.
on something and they say, oh, you couldn't use it.
Yeah,
on
right.
this.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course.
And that could happen in auditing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my only concern.
Yep.
And truthfully, like expenses like that, if there's any concern, our auditor is on my speed dial. I think it's a lot of calls, so.
Or you have a question?
The capital outlay, how is
Yes.
the capital outlay?
Capital outlay, we are ending, if I don't transfer any money over to it and it sits just as it is, we will end the year at $1.2 million.
That's after paying. for
That's
the
after,
project.
that's after paying for the project, that's all encumbrances coming through there. That's, what else is in it? That's the Lincoln Playground coming out of there. That is all expenses for 1920, which is great. Our goal was to keep it above $1 million, and we're at 1.2 right now, so it's very healthy. As far as mills related to capital outlay, we are at 8, which is our max. But pending projects that we have coming up, I would kind of like to sustain that going forward. We have quite a few more things we'd like to do.
And we get participation from the state.
Yes.
For those income.
Yes.
Any more questions?
The problem is with the participation from the state, we don't know how much they're going to participate yet.
Well,
Right.
Do we?
Well, we're looking at about a 3% increase.
That
on
could change,
state. Yeah,
right?
it could. And that's variable. I mean, last year they said 6, and it's also contingent on enrollment. So there is some
There's
flexibility
a lot
in
of
there.
things right now up in the air.
Yeah.
So that
But we're
percentage could change.
I'm expecting to get our state money. I think we might become a little shorter on our federal, but.
But you never know.
Don't worry. Yeah. Yeah, you never know.
Might not get anything.
No.
Yep.
According to the people. But, that it?
Hey, real quick,
Okay, Jason?
can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to listen to the YouTube and listen to Adam's phone so I can see the presentations and everything too. So I apologize for that. But just real quick, just for the public knowledge, what you're presenting for next year's budget, what is the levy increase? Or is there just the public's knowledge since a lot of them are participating remotely?
What what are we expecting for
He's
next
asking
year?
about the mill,
Yes,
what the mill
yes.
changes, so we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet. Jason, that'll happen next week.
Sure.
I don't
I didn't
feel
know
like
if you
it's
had a
gonna
feel for where we
be,
were heading or not.
truthfully, if I were to just play it out based on what I am seeing right now, I would say that we sustain the capital outlay, LOB, right where they're at, and then with the possibility of a slight increase in your bond and interest just in reference to continued increases in our bond debt payoff over the next couple years. And by slight, I mean 1 mil. Can you hear me?
Yes.
But the other thing on that is we do have to go through all of our budget software, so that is not a set thing. And we will also have our accountant in here next week, so he will help us with that final thought on that.
Okay, thanks.
If there's anything above or below that, we will obviously get with the board prior to our next meeting to discuss budget.
Okay, thanks.
We have a date set to approve that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, you have to. Yeah.
27?
The July 27th is published, yeah, so we'll be going over all this information before we publish it to the public.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. Now we've had some discussion about, or we haven't at the meeting, I don't think, had discussion about possibly the board receiving electronic badges, which that is like the old key, am I right? To the
Yes.
buildings
It would be
and,
like a little metal cage, sure.
so we need just to discuss that, what you feel about the board having an electronic badge so that we have access to the buildings, or just we have some discussion on that.
I think I'm probably the biggest proponent to this, and my thinking is some of the duties of the board is oversight, policy, budget. So with that said, I was an elected official by the citizens of this district, and I am responsible to the state. So since I have that responsibility, I would like to have access to any door at any time to fulfill that responsibility and the oversight. Unlike it is now, I have to buzz in and tell them who I am, and maybe they'll let me in and maybe not. Or just say, hey, come back, make an appointment with us so we can come in. And I don't think that is necessarily the way we should be treated on that. I don't know if you sent out the list, Adam,
Yeah.
of the badges. Did everybody get the list of who has
It
badges?
was a couple months ago, I think, or
Okay, I don't remember, but that's.
but yeah, I sent it to everybody.
So, and Adam and I just communicated by email on this, but I think there were some people that weren't on that list. I think Kobe Zika has a badge, and he's the president of the Crusader Club, so I'm not real sure why he would have to have a badge. So that kind of put a little thorn in my side. So I'm just thinking, as a board, we should have access to go in and look at oversight, as well as we set policies to make sure our policies are set in place. And basically also go in and talk to the principals and the teachers and sit in the classrooms without, not saying that we're spying on them, but just to go and see how everything's going. I know Adam put in his board briefs that, I can't remember, was it what's it called, LifeServe? What was it that you used to get into contact with the 46 districts?
Oh, listen.
Listserv, sorry, I said LifeServe.
Yeah, there's an email list.
And he said that only one board of education district has badges, one is in the process, and 44 did not. And that's fine, but if we're gonna take that attitude of what other boards are doing, then maybe we should look at everything that they're doing and kind of mirror them. So, and I know Adam also said in his briefs that he has a concern of unintentional sending the wrong message, and that has nothing to do with it. I would answer it by, we have the oversight, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to have badges to get into the school. So that's the reason that I would like to have badges. So with that said, I'm gonna make a motion right now, and,
This is for discussion.
yeah, that's fine, but I still can make a motion.
Well.
And if you want to keep discussing, that's fine. You know.
Need a second to vote on it. You can-
So, but I'll listen. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have,
Okay.
let's just, be careful we face discussion first.
Yeah,
Sure.
this is the
Because, have
discussion.
all, yeah, have all our knowledge. What we're thinking.
Personally, I've never had any trouble getting in any school. You know, with the bond issue of 2014, we did, increase the security of the schools greatly, quite a bit. Because before then, we had those keys all over town, I think. And so this is a much more secure system. But yes, you do have to go through some hoops to get through. But like I say, I've never had any trouble.
I haven't had trouble getting in a building. I've had, in the past, but it's all new administration and things are different now. Not necessarily getting in a building, just visiting when I want to visit, but I don't see that
See,
happening.
I've never, I did ask last year and I had a hard time getting in, but I don't think, I think if I tried again, I don't think I'd have that issue. I'm trying to have a refreshed look about everything now, and I'd like to have.
Contact me if you did have.
Yeah, and maybe not an access card to a door, but maybe just like a badge that has our name on it so they know who we are. I don't know. I guess that'd be just our ID, but I don't know.
I might add, Carol has mentioned that that's something she would be interested in, is a badge or
Like just
some
like
type
a
of ID.
Yeah, because like when I was in the school before, it would just say visitor. Maybe we need like a badge that says like school board member or something more.
Sure.
Because not everyone knows our faces, so.
Yeah, but you would still, it's just the badge to get in, and then you go to the office. It's not like you go in and then you just start walking around, and then that way.
Like I haven't been to every school, but like the schools that I have been in, that'd be like a back door, wouldn't it? It wouldn't just be like the front.
No,
I've always gone through like the
It would
front
be
door.
any of our.
It can be in any,
Oh,
so like if we're having a board meeting, instead of waiting out there sometimes for somebody to let you in, or if you have a meeting, on a committee meeting, instead of waiting and ringing the door, you can use your badge and get in, come to the board.
Okay.
And, my thing is, instead of waiting to get in, we should be able to get in with the badge and not have to wait. Then obviously you follow the protocol of going to the office saying, hey, I'm here. I'm checking on this policy, or I'm doing this, or I'd like to go see this classroom, or I want to see something on the mental health. I want to see the trauma. I'm in it, and just do that.
Sorry, I don't mean to butt in. I can't tell somebody else is talking at the same time, so I apologize. But I like Nina's idea. I kind of thought that for several years, that it would be nice to have an ID that kind of identifies us as board members, because I too have been in that same situation where I'm walking around with a visitor's badge on, and I just think it means something for us to be represented as board members. But along those same lines, I'm not a big fan of having access to the buildings. As far as, I think Chris is right, we set policy, and then we hire administrators to help carry out those policies. I think that's maybe getting too into the weeds, in my personal opinion. I respect Chris's opinion, but in my personal opinion, I think that's getting too into the weeds.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris, but the stuff you said in my board brief, I was trying to be informational there. So.
I know. I'm just stating what was said.
No, that's fine. No, I was just
I mean,
saying, I was trying to provide information.
So does that badge get you into every door?
You can have the badge. You can have a badge for all doors, any kinds, or just for the high school, just for the middle
Well,
school.
so would you just want one for this door so you're not having to wait out before to click you in?
I would like to have it for the schools, so I can, if I'm setting the policy and I'm being responsible for the state, and the state comes down to me to talk to me about something,
But they're
talk
gonna-
about the
They're not
board.
gonna talk to you, they're gonna talk to us.
I know, they're gonna talk to the whole board, right, I'm just saying, I said me, I should say the whole
Yeah,
board.
okay.
So I'm gonna be, the state comes down and talks to the whole board.
Mhm.
You know, if I'm responsible, then I feel that I should have access to make sure some of the policies are being followed through.
So I know at the city level, I mean, I think the council members have access to city hall, but they don't have access to all of our outlying buildings. Nor do I think that would be there's a little bit of security issue there on some of that stuff. So, and I think that same security issue could apply to this too.
Well, then how about just the schools and the district office? And no outlying buildings.
I guess I would class the schools as outlying buildings, and that's not where we normally go to conduct our business. Our business.
We have.
That the USD353 BOE. And that's, again, that's just.
We have, matter of fact, we did it, what, was it the June meeting we were at the high school? So we do conduct businesses at the other schools.
Well, I've done work for 6 years, and that's the first time that's happened. So, yeah, I mean, it does happen, sure.
Yeah, there's usually no problem getting into the schools.
Did you make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that, well, I guess before I do, on the discussion, do you just want it for, would it be better for just the schools and the district office? Or would you just want the district office?
Honestly, I'm never gonna use it. I mean, like, if I had like a badge that had my name on it with who I was, I would use it if I needed it, but I mean, every time I've walked up to that door, she's letting me in before I even touch the doorknob. I mean, I don't. I'm
in favor of your idea too. That would be a good idea to have at least your.
Like the lanyard with,
A lanyard.
yeah, but I mean, if you want to have, I don't have any need or desire to go into the schools at all, unless I was like requested, and then it's gonna be to me through the front door with talking to a secretary first, but I don't, I mean, if you're just wanting a key card so you can hit that button so you don't have to wait on it to be buzzed in, I'll second that for
Yeah,
you, but I don't,
that's it, and
I
then
don't
you just
need- I
follow
don't
the
need
protocol.
I don't
You
need
follow the
schools.
protocol to go in and you talk to the office and say, hey, that's
Yeah.
all, just not.
Yeah, but then that's where your badge comes, you're just a regular lanyard badge with who you are.
Yeah,
They're
but
gonna be like, oh,
the
you're a
point
school
is,
member. Okay.
you're buzzing in saying, hey, this.
But I guess and I'm trying to pick up what you were saying, Chris. I thought you said any door, anytime. That
Well,
really
that's-
like the front door.
I'm looking at getting a consensus. So if I
Oh,
can't,
okay, I got you, sure.
you know,
Yeah, I mean,
So you're not saying any door, anytime. Correct?
You're wanting to, Chris, you're wanting to get a consensus on if the board is leaning more towards that would be acceptable, or if your motion should say
right,
just schools and central office,
Right.
school buildings themselves.
Right.
That's what we're talking about right now, which,
Right. So if it's better to say just the schools and the district office, then I will state that in the motion. If there's a consensus for just a district office, I will say that. My deal is I don't think that I need to press a button to have somebody let me in as a board member.
So you mean after hours?
No.
Okay,
I would
that's what
state
I'm
that
saying is-
no, there'd be no reason for me to be in after hours.
Okay.
not like, I'm not saying, do those key cards, does someone have access to know when they're hitting those key cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the whole.
Yeah, if you.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I just
that's
wanna
the
make
whole
sure, I mean,
security thing on it.
I don't know all this stuff, so.
I can state it within school hours.
Okay.
And not anytime.
Well,
but
there's
assuming
always
there's-
someone there to,
Right.
Let you
There
in,
would be
so-
no reason for me to go in if nobody's there,
okay.
you know?
Okay.
Do the cards have, I mean, you can limit the time on them anyway, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't like,
Yeah,
Really, that's,
you know, like you can say they can't come in after hour, like it
Yeah.
will work on a certain
Huh.
time.
like
Yeah.
if it's a 3:30, you can put in 3:30. Or
Huh.
you can put
I
in
didn't know
4. 9 to 4. I can put that in the motion, 9 to 4.
that,
You know.
I just
Can you
didn't know that
limit
you
the
could do
doors
that.
on that? I mean, if person's wanting to go in the front door and go through the whole protocol. so
You can get, yeah,
access to that.
you should be able just to do it.
Separate the doors.
Yeah.
I will have to check. Weston, do you know the answer to that?
Sorry, what?
Do you know the answer to whether they can separate it by door or do they separate it by building?
It's by building.
Electronic badges? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I can check with the company though and see if it can go down further.
And there are different access entrances. I think most entrances at the buildings, you use a key card to get in.
right.
So you could technically, you don't have to go through the front, but I mean.
So yeah, I would check on the separating the doors. I'm not totally for sure on that. So I know that typically, because we don't really ever have to mess with separating doors, I think the way the system's set up is by building. Because if we're giving somebody card access to a building during the day or whatever, we just put in the building they work in. So I think that's how the system's set up now, but I would have to check with the company to see if we
Because
can
when
go.
teachers come in all
do
hours
it
of
by
the day and
door,
on
yeah.
weekends and so you probably don't put time.
Most of our
Yeah, so I would think.
Most of our staff that only work during the school day don't have electronic keys at all. That's part of the security plan.
Pairs and things like
Pairs,
that.
yeah, just because the
They don't
front
have
office is always open when they would show up anyway, so there's no reason for them to have one, and it's less cards out there in the community. Actually, when a year ago, when I became superintendent, I immediately changed all the keys in the building, and I was very unpopular day one when I did that, because there's a lot of frustrated people in the community that had keys for years and years and years, so.
So
very
back to
popular.
that point that Chris brought up, I do think that's something that needs to be looked at as far as outside district employees having access to the building. But I mean, overall, I don't know that I'm a big fan of a bunch of legwork to avoid pressing the button. It's just my opinion.
Emergency personnel do have access to the building, Jason, just so you know. We actually have keys that are placed outside in a lockbox for fire, and we have police officers. The chief has, both chief and sheriff have specific keys that go to their officers so that they can respond to emergency situations.
So do you want to check on the doors before,
I
and
can
then I'll discuss this. We can discuss it more next meeting.
Whatever
and that
the
way,
board-
Just a discussion
We know.
item and,
and then I'll hold off on making a motion.
okay. Is that,
Yeah, whatever. the
that's
board-
what I do, Chris, if you do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
So you want me to check on whether we can do individual doors, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that way we can go through the front door, and like I said, it's following the protocol. We go in, it's not like we're gonna walk around the whole school. That's not my intent.
So I will also check on concerns on people outside the district, because we should not have people outside the district that have.
That's just, that, yeah.
That's the first
How
time,
do,
that's the first I've heard of that, so I will check on that.
How do, like a basketball season, they have practices at all the buildings. How do,
So
I wonder,
the athletic director would check out a key to,
During
owner key
yeah.
to use during that time.
whoever's the coaches of the little
Yes,
team.
which would
Yeah.
go with the documents that are at the
Sure.
school that they would have to fill out to rent the building or to do all that stuff. So.
So just for clarification, I think I heard Chris say he was pulling his motion.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait until next meeting before Adam's gonna check on if he can just single out doors.
But I thought we had a second on the motion, maybe I misunderstood.
No, we didn't have a second.
No.
I didn't make a motion.
Officially, no.
Okay.
I didn't-
Sorry.
I said I would make a motion, but I didn't make a
I
motion.
thought I heard Nina say.
Oh, I said
No.
I would if it
She would
was.
second the motion on.
Okay, I misunderstood. Thanks.
I will put that on the August agenda for discussion.
Okay. Action items that we are gonna vote on. We met, to build our strategic plan and the board goals recently, and we're ready to approve those if, everyone looked them back over after corrections and all that were made.
we still do want to do a different format on it. It's still the same
Yeah.
format. We'll work on that. But we did put a fancy front cover that Shelby designed on. So.
Thanks, Scott.
But the documents itself are the same.
Yes, the documents are corrected as after that conversation and are ready to go to, and we will get those documents on the website and everything as public documents. So.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the strategic plan and board goals for 2021?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Okay,
strategic plan and the board goals for 2021.
we have a.
I'll second.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote because Jason is via the telephone.
Chris Buckman,
Yes.
Larry Mangum,
Yes.
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garber,
Yes.
Tom Henning,
Yes.
Pat Zika.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the band uniforms. We had a really nice presentation. The evidence is right here still on purchasing uniforms for the band for the coming purchasing now, and they would hopefully be here by the start of school, but
Board had requested this back on in May, wanted to wait a couple months, watch money, and
We have a
get back
budget.
on that. So we know where capital outlay is at now, and we also know what the governor had stated as far as the latest information we have. So we'll put it back on the agenda as an action.
and that's what we're waiting on, and we've got all that information, so we should have all the information we need to make a.
Well, we don't know about how the opening of school is going to be doing.
We'll work on that.
So, just based on what everything else is going, like no choir in church, no this, no that. Are we going to have band in school? Are we going to have choir in school? Are we going to have football? Are we going to have any extracurricular activity?
Yep.
I mean, I think every one of us knows that we need new band uniforms. I think the timing's just not right, just based on, we don't know. So if we get new band uniforms, so do they sit for the year, or do we?
It's gonna take, 6 months to get them?
Well, they're 120 days
Yeah.
out, right?
Right, but if we don't have any extracurricular activities or anything, they would be sitting. So, I don't know. I just think right now with everything that money could be used for our technology for here. Obviously, we had another snafu with technology, and we sit here and wait, and people are looking online, streaming, wondering what's going on. So maybe we could use that money there, or even for the Kansas roadmap that we don't have grant. So I'm just saying that the timing isn't right, and I'm not sure why this wasn't discussed in older boards when the uniforms really needed to be. Now the band uniforms are in dire need. That's my only thing. It's just the timeline of it all, and we don't even know school what school's going to look like. So
Now, the band uniforms is a capital item. KRR would not be, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there you cannot use the capital, you would not be able to use capital.
well, we can still use it for technology here. So I mean, I was just throwing out things that we could use the money for that is more relevant than any uniforms, not just band uniforms. Like I said, we don't even know if we're going to have band in school.
Well, like I said, it's 120 to 180 days, that's 6 months.
Right. That's 6
So,
months. So that's fine. I'm just saying that the timing is just not, in my opinion, just not right for it. But that's just me.
Well, the band has waited a long time.
I know, and
For
that's
this.
and I said that
Because they had big
I don't know
lead
why the old boards did not address this situation years ago.
Well.
And you were on the old board, so I don't know.
I'm not sure it came up until just recently.
Right, but it should have.
Well, yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Okay, thank you.
As for, I think every one of us here does want new band uniforms. Now, hypothetically, if we did say, okay, we're going to do this, I think they had mentioned something about getting started measuring students. That does seem a little bit dangerous. Like, hey, we're going to get new, Chris is right. We may not be able to have band.
Sure.
I think it would be kind of bad to measure kids for band uniforms, not knowing, and then we get them made and not being able to use them.
But didn't he say, like the uniforms were adjustable, like,
Some parts of them. were,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they-
like some parts.
They also wanted to do some measuring.
okay, yeah,
There was-
I remember he said he wanted to measure, but,
Yeah,
I mean, that's
there
where I-
was, there was a bit of both involved. There was some measuring and
Okay.
also there were adjustments.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of curious. It seems like the people that get the first brand new band uniforms have them tailor made, and then they have to alter
Yeah, I
them.
don't think they're taking, I mean, I know what you're saying.
Right, well, that's
Yeah.
the kind of the way, because he said he
Right.
was, we asked him, he would
Yeah.
start measuring kids tonight if we'd approve it when he gave his presentation, so.
I do know like everything else, the cost, if you put it off, is gonna be that much more, you know.
Right.
anyway.
Yeah, I don't
That's true.
know if it's a situation where he can train parents to measure, and send him the measurements or whatever. I honestly don't know. We'd have to get into
I,
it.
yeah. I would think.
would he measure the whole, like, everyone, like, the 9th through 12th for the band? It wouldn't just be just one grade, it would be the whole
No,
band.
it would be everybody that's in it.
So, I mean, eventually, this is gonna be almost like the new norm, and school is gonna eventually have to just roll on, I mean, but, so I like to believe that eventually band is gonna be back in session, so even if those uniforms got made and came in February, I believe in September, those kids will be wearing them, and they may sit for a few months, that this school year, they may not have to wear them, but I believe the next year. And then, and then if those 3 grades were part of those measurements, then it's only really 1 grade that didn't get measured, and then those would be the adjustable ones, or I guess, I don't know.
And they have to be made, when you've used those for years and years and years, like your wedding dress, you're gonna get, it fits, but, something you're gonna pass on.
These get adjusted.
Kind of like cheerleading uniforms, you find the one that fits you the best.
I
And
think that he went ahead and got measurements,
Oh, cool.
just because that was what you guys had recommended in May,
Okay.
was to go ahead and get the measurements. So
Double check it.
I had to look it up in my email just to be for sure.
Well, do we get a motion to approve the new band uniforms, purchase of band uniforms?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the band uniforms for $59,631.30.
So do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the band uniforms. We'll take a roll call vote.
Chris Buckman,
No.
Larry Mangum,
Yes.
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garber,
Yes.
Tom Henning,
No,
Pat Zika.
Yes. Okay, motion passed. The next item on the agenda is executive session for how long do you think?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. And we have an official executive session reader over here.
Madam President, I move we go into executive session, including Mr. Hatfield and administrative staff, I guess, to discuss employee contractual matters pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under the Kansas Open Meeting Act. The open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 8:50, say?
That would be,
Is that about right?
48 would be 10 minutes, but.
Does anybody need a break?
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Okay.
It's 8:48.
Before you?
What you said,
Oh, you got a second to go into executive session?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, we'll take a roll call.
Yeah, we'll just stay in here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
that way we can.
We don't have to move it past each other.
Here, let's just do a quick roll call.
Do we need a roll call? We have a roll call vote, so.
Chris Buckman,
See y'all.
Larry
See y'all later.
Mangum,
Thank you.
Nice to meet all of you.
Hi. You too.
You bet.
okay, sorry, yeah. Chris Buckman,
Yes.
Larry Mangum,
Yes.
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garber,
Yes.
Tom Henning,
Yes.
Pat Zika.
Yes.
Remember, you got a camera over here.
So, are we ready to go?
Mhm.
Okay, we are back in session. I think we need another executive session for,
Make it,
Jen wanted one for different reasons, you said.
Yeah, did you want me to talk about this?
Yeah, we're doing one for negotiation.
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
I didn't know if you
that
guys wanted to change consent before we went.
Okay,
back into
okay.
executive or not.
so we don't need a back-to-back one, gotcha.
Then we will, move on and approve the consent agenda.
No,
we have to-
We'll have.
I'm all-
We have to go
I
back.
didn't know if you wanted to make the motion on the consent before we went back into executive session for
I
negotiation.
would like to do that, yes.
Okay.
So we need, out-of-state travel
Gotta
removed.
find it,
and
5.15.
we need, change.
If-
Can I do
Yes.
this? Can I do both motions in one?
I think so.
I think so.
I make a motion to change on 5.314 about mileage, changing it from $57.50 a mile to 57.5 cents per mile.
No, $5 and,
No.
No,
Right.
It's right, it's 57 cents.
oh, 57 cents.
Am I correct? I thought I was,
0.5756.
yeah, point, yeah.
Cents.
That's what I did.
And also on
$5. Okay.
Also on 5.15, the out-of-state travel, take that off the consent agenda.
So we need a motion to do those things.
I did it, I will second the
You
motion.
seconded that?
He seconded.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Chris Buckman,
Yes.
Larry Mangum,
Yes.
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garber,
Yes.
Tom Henning,
Yes.
Pat Mika.
Yes. Okay.
Now. motion to
Oh, or you're
go
not
into
second.
Executive session.
Executive session for,
Negotiations.
To discuss negotiations.
yes.
Do you want to make that?
For how long?
What do you need?
I only need probably about 7 minutes.
7.
Let's do 10.
I don't need 10.
Seven.
We'll do 10.
You know,
Okay,
take
so
longer
let's
than-
do 10 minutes.
And who do we need involved in that?
Actually, let's do 15 minutes.
Okay,
Yes, all
Larry, 15 minutes.
of those, yes.
Will we go into executive session to discuss negotiations pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under the Open Meetings Act? And the open meeting will resume at
9:07?
9:06.
Okay,
Second.
we'll, second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Chris Buckman,
Yes.
Larry Mangum,
Yes.
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garber,
Yes.
Tom Henning,
Yes.
Pat Mika.
Yes.
Okay, Shelby, take a deep breath.
Here we go.
We are going to hear the consent agenda.
All right, let's do this.
Can you say ditto on some of it?
All right, approve the minutes of the June 8th regular meeting and June 22nd special meeting. Approve payroll bills, $758,973.91. Payroll $2,424,500.75. Act on appointments, designations, and authorizations. Deputy Board Clerk Wendy Goodrum, Food Service Authorized Representative, and determining official for free and reduced price meal applications. Adam Hatfield, Federal Programs and Projects Representative Ann Schindler, truancy reporters, all school building administrators, coordinator for homeless children, Dr. Jen Kern, Capers Representative CJ Carey, Freedom of Information Officer Adam Hatfield, Federal Anti-Discrimination Compliance Officer Daniel Farley, official newspaper for legal publications, the Wellington Daily News, official depository for school district funds pursuant KSA 9-1401, Intact Bank, authorized the board clerk pursuant to KSA 12-105E to pay claims as needed in advance of the regular board meeting in order for the district to benefit from discounts. Authorized application for and utilization of funds from Title I, Title II vocational grants, Eisenhower Math and Science grants, and food service program free and reduced meals. Adopt the hourly required school year as follows. Kindergarten, do grade 11, 1,116 hours, and grade 12, 1,086 hours. Adopt the state mileage rate of 57.5 cents per mile pursuant to KSA 75-3203A. Approve the membership in the KSAB Legal Assistance Fund, $2,100. Approve membership in the Kansas Association of School Boards, $12,650.58. Adopt guidelines for activity fund and gate receipts according to KSA 72-8208A. Resolutions. Act on resolutions authorizing petty cash and activity funds for administrative offices as presented pursuant to KSA 72-1177 and KSA 72-1178. Petty cash fund amount, superintendent's revolving $1,000, high school $1,500, middle school $1,500, special education $500, and food service $500. Act on resolution 20-01, authorizing a petty cash fund for superintendent's revolving fund. Act on resolution 20-02, authorizing a petty cash fund for WHS. Act on resolution 20-03, authorizing a petty cash fund for WMS. Act on resolution 20-04, authorizing a petty cash fund for special education. Act on resolution 20-05, authorizing a petty cash fund for food service. Act on resolution 20-06, authorizing activity funds for WHS. Act on resolution 20-07, authorizing activity funds for WMS. Act on resolution 20-08, authorizing activity funds for Lincoln Elementary. Act on resolution 20-09, authorizing activity funds for Eisenhower Elementary. Act on resolution 20-10, authorizing activity funds for Kennedy Elementary. Act on resolution 20-11, authorizing activity funds for Washington Elementary. Act on resolution 20-12, to establish Board of Education meeting dates, times, and location. Regular meetings shall be at the second Monday of each month at the district office at 7 p.m. Act on resolution 2013, to establish home rule by the Board of Education. Act on resolution 2014, to rescind policy statements from previous year. Act on resolution 20-15, to waive generally accepted accounting practices. Personnel. Approve new hires: Mark Cadello, PE teacher, Kennedy; Shelby Bevan, social worker, Kennedy; Jack Taylor, custodian, night shift supervisor, WHS; Brittany Mepper, high school assistant volleyball and middle school assistant girls basketball; Carla DeFore, WHS National Honor Society sponsor; Tim Green, middle school, high school assistant cross country; Debbie Runyon, math, WHS; Kelsey Henshaw, registrar ID assistant; Christine Cox, math teacher, WHS; Matthew Gerber, math teacher, WHS. Approve resignation: Linda Yates, registrar and AD assistant. Approve dates for budget review, publication, and budget hearing. The following dates are being presented: July 27th, 2020 at 7 p.m. for review budget and approved publication. July 29th, 2020, publish the budget. August 10th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. budget hearing, followed by BOE meeting. Statutes dictate the process for budget approval. There must be 10 days between board approval, publication, and budget hearing. Approve meal prices for 2021, elementary $1.60, middle school breakfast $1.50, high school breakfast $1.50, elementary lunch $2.75, middle school lunch $2.95, high school lunch $3.20. There are no changes for meal prices from last year. Appoint Martin Peck as district's legal counsel. Appoint Jared Brown as district treasurer. Approve classified handbook for 2021. Approve USD353 emergency operations plan handbook for 2021. Approve annual contract with USD619 for 2021. Approve building handbooks for 2021. Approve substitute handbook for 2021. And that is it.
There you go.
Good job.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. We'll have a roll call vote.
I've got my roll call. Chris Buckman,
Yes.
Carol Larry Mangum,
Here.
Jason Newberry,
Yes.
Deanna Garber,
Yes.
Tom Henning,
Yes.
Pat Zika.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, we're ready for more comments. Comment on Mike.
Okay, I got one. The heat pump thing, the $12,000 thing that we had, you emailed us on. My understanding, there was something about a warranty. Does that mean, is that 12,000 what we're paying, whether the thing's not warranted, or will we get some back if it was warranted? Or if they denied the warranty anyway?
I think the warranty was on other than what was sent.
Okay,
Right.
okay,
Yeah, I am not looking at any reimbursement from that.
okay.
So that wasn't a fairly new heat pump? I thought it was a fairly new heat pump now.
I want to say no.
Because when I read the report, it was something about they had contacted LG about the warranty. So I didn't know if we paid, so we purchased that. There wasn't another purchase separate from that.
No.
Okay, so that 12,000 was all inclusive.
Yeah.
And we probably won't get it warranty.
I don't think so.
Okay. Hall Electric, $981 for a light to be changed. Is it a very complicated light?
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I'd have to look
Which one
at
it was. I'd have to talk to our maintenance supervisor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll get back with you on that. I would guess so.
Yeah.
We're getting $98.10 to just the decimals like this.
Right, yeah.
I would think it would.
I'll check on that.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's the only stuff I have.
Was there any policy changes came down from the state?
Yes, we have, well, not policy changes necessarily, but we did receive the initial recommendations from the state on Thursday for school reopening. We've been reviewing that, and our plan is to, we have meetings with the rest of the administrators later this week. So we're reviewing that. We have, the State Board of Education has not acted on those officially yet. They will act on those on Wednesday.
Tomorrow, I think.
Yeah,
Something's coming out
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I believe they act on those tomorrow to make them official. And then we are meeting with our administrators, and then our administrators will take the information that we put together to our teachers, and then we will be putting together our plan to bring to you. Our plan, we're planning on bringing that to you at the special meeting to approve the budget on July 27th is the plan. So we would have that to you so that we could then get that out to the community after that meeting. So just getting the information and starting to put it together. So
Where can you find that, the information that they gave out?
they have not released it to the public yet.
Oh, okay.
They'll
That's behind
release
this.
it. Yeah, they just released it to
Okay, so it's
superintendents
all-
until the
Okay.
state board acts on it.
Yeah, I
And
thought
then
it
they
was,
will- yeah. And then so it should be everywhere by
yeah, I
after
can't
the
remember the
state
time it
board.
was supposed to be.
And I don't know what adjusting they've done to it since, because they've got feedback from districts since they released it to just superintendents. So, yep.
For that news.
We will definitely be getting with you guys even ahead of that to try to get your opinion on some things. So,
With talking about policy, obviously, I'm on policy committee. Haven't had one
Yes.
meeting, nothing. What's your plans?
we did have one meeting. We had a change in board clerk since then.
Yeah.
And the original policy book project did not get as far as we discussed in that meeting. And so we are replanning that now. I don't know how far do you think before we get the committee back together?
I don't know, it's ready.
Okay, so we'll be getting another committee meeting going.
What's almost ready?
I just have to update the June policies from this year and then, so a couple weeks.
So
Maybe we-
I can look at August then?
Yep.
Okay.
Good question, Chris. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say it's really sad that we had to cancel graduation, but we did do everything we could to get the kids that walk across that stage and get their diploma. But I really think the class of 2020 is going to be bonded together by something that nobody else has ever had to go through. And, you know, my class is close, but we didn't have to do anything like this. And I just want to congratulate the class of 2020. And
Absolutely. Yep, they deserve every bit of that, and they have missed out on so much.
And it continues.
Yeah,
and
it will.
continues. And I tell you what, I talked to Tom and Chris and Pat and that day, and my gosh, I must have gotten tears in my eyes a dozen times that day trying to just communicate, and it's just heartbreaking.
I thought what you said, your statement was really good. I thought it shared empathy.
I just, congratulations, Tom, Natalie, and Chris to Christian, and all of our graduates, and it's just really, really heartbreaking. And the last thing we wanted to do was, we really hoped that when we scheduled it in July that we were thinking we're going to schedule this on the other side of this thing, and then to have it schedule it in probably the worst time, not even realizing at the time, it's just heartbreaking. So, it's just
hope for next year.
Yep, we just really wish them all the best, and absolutely, completely understand how people are feeling in that situation.
Yeah. Anything else anybody would like to share? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Let's do it now, Pat.
It's just